It was named after two grandmothers, Elsa Hansen Laursen and Jensina Dalsgaard Peterson Nygaard. Both my grandmothers were immigrant. My grandmother Jensina came in 1887 as a bride, and they were in California. Then they moved to Danish, Texas, a Danish community in Texas, then to Mississippi. The cutover timberland, all this land, after the sawmills played out. It was this land through realtors and bankers was advertised in immigrant newspapers as good farmland, cut over farmland. There's no timber to clear, it's cleared. Come by some acreage and kind of the Los Angeles of the South where you can have a long growing season. So the property was sold as Granley Investment Corporation, named by an Iowa banker who was a Danish. But this was during the Depression, 1929, 1930. This was during the Dust Bowl. So many of them had to sell all their animals, packed up, came down to Mississippi to try it out. Some came first and looked it over and said, sure, let's go do that. So about 20 to 30 families, ended up several bachelors, came to establish new farms. Most of them were farmers. They were expert carpenters. They were highly well-educated. They were all learning the English language as quickly as they could. They still longed for their Danish connections. So to come here as a Danish colony in South Mississippi is what evolved. And these little families clung together, and that was their way of, making it in the world, is to cling together, work together, and that's kind of the cooperative idea that they had. But when we restored this building in 1985, we began the restoration and preservation process. We kind of have become known as that little Granley place. There's been a lot of events happening here at Granley, as people say. It's a discovery still. People will come for an event and they are stunned. They didn't know this was here at all. It's like a little hidden treasure behind the trees. The building itself was built in 1936, the year I was born. So it has a significance for me, I think. I was always told you're as old as the Versammlingshus. So this is our Versammlingshus. Versammlings is a gathering or a meeting, and Hus is house. So it's like a gathering place. And it was built by a cooperative. The ladies sold homemade ice cream. They worked so hard to sell and get the nickels and dimes to add to the fund for the Versammlingshus. We have the Ladies' Aid Minutes. We had a Ladies' Aid Association. And they were so busy, they sold a quilt, raffled it off nationwide. All the Lutheran churches, they made hundreds of dollars off of that quilt. And it was won by a church in Iowa. And then they turned around and raffled it off. I understand it was raffled off many times. The people worked so hard together to build it. The biggest thing that happened, I think, is the sawmill town of Piave in Greene County. There was an abandoned sawmill, the Piave sawmill. And the Danes read that if you wanted, in the Mobile paper, I think, if you wanted some timber or lumber, or if you wanted to take a house apart, you could go to Piave, and it was up to you to take it apart and move the house or the building. So the Danes went up, and they are recyclers for generations. The Danish people just always recycle. And they went up and took apart the buildings, and a lot of this, the meeting house here, a lot of the timber comes from some of those buildings, as well as the homes that are around here. We had a store in Harleston that was rebuilt from the school at Piaf. So that's basically what our energetic and carpenter, smart Danish men were busy doing. And so in 1936 it was completed, and their Versammlingshus, and they had planned to have a school and a church, but we were not that big a community. So, it evolved to have everything here. We had folk dances here. We had a monthly party for everybody who had a birthday that month, which as a little girl growing up, I have vivid memories of those parties, especially the August one, because that was my birthday month, and I remember everybody who had a birthday in August because of that. But it was a community, definitely a gathering place. I mean, we had gymnastics, we had Sunday school, we had our church services, we had visiting ministers come from Danish Lutheran churches. And as they came, they brought us things like the communion set up here, the piano. They brought many different things for us. The sconces on each side of the altar, the Christ statue came from an Iowa church that was rebuilding and built a bigger one. So we kind of are a depository for artifacts too that we've saved and preserved. Our benches were built by the men, and everything. All of us older children moved away, went to college, lived other places, and the few people who remained, the elderly people, my mother in particular, she had to always find someone to come and get her and take her to church. So it finally, I think the Petersons were the last, and the Christensens who had church services here, a young couple. And eventually they just stopped because couldn't find a minister. And they emerged and moved into the Methodist and Lutheran churches locally. I went to visit the Lutheran church and asked them what they were planning to do. And they said, well, no one cares about it. And I said, that's not really true. It's, a lot of us have been gone, but I'm going to see what I can do to preserve it. And so we organized a nonprofit, Grantley Historical Foundation Incorporated, state chartered. I wrote to about 200 letters, found addresses in a roundabout way, and money started coming in from all these children like me all over the U.S. We had a huge reunion in 1985, very big reunion. It was awesome, and I'm so happy we had it at that time because 80% of those people are gone now. And it was a restoration of everything, of our faith in our heritage, our love of this place. It was profound a day. It had so much undertone of growth, and you knew that you had done the right thing. And so today we still celebrate. December 26th every year is our big Christmas festival. It's an awesome event. We have the Danish Old World tradition, because that's what I learned was Old World traditions. It's still that same culture, that Scandinavian food and fun. And so we have managed to have the funding, the organization, to see that this stays permanently, and we'll be here for our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and on, as long as someone takes care of it.